up and reject globalization. Right now, the most urgent threat to our nations is ISIL, and that's why we're united in our determination to destroy it. And all 28 NATO allies are contributing to our coalition, whether it's striking ISIL targets in Syria and Iraq, or supporting the air campaign, or training local forces in Iraq, or providing critical humanitarian aid. And we continue to make progress, pushing ISIL back from territory that it controlled. And just as I've approved additional support for Iraqi forces against ISIL, I've decided to increase U.S. support for local forces fighting ISIL in Syria. A small number of American Special Operations Forces are already on the ground in Syria, and their expertise has been critical as local forces have driven ISIL out of key areas. So given the success, I've approved the deployment of up to 250 additional U.S. personnel in Syria, including special forces, to keep up this momentum. That human impulse to see the next generation have hope. All of us can be guided by the empathy. NATO's central mission is and always will be our solemn duty, our Article 5 commitment to our common defense. And that's why we'll continue to bolster the defense of our frontline allies in Poland and Romania and the Baltic states. So we have to both make sure that NATO carries out its traditional mission, but also to meet the threats of NATO's southern flank. We have to defend the security of every ally. That's why we need to stay nimble and make sure our forces are interoperable and invest in new capabilities like cyber defense and missile defense. And that's why every NATO member should be contributing its full share, 2% of GDP, towards our common security, something that doesn't always happen. And I'll be honest, sometimes Europe has been complacent about its own defense. After all that Europe endured in the 20th century, we must not allow borders to be redrawn by brute force in the 21st century. So we should keep helping Ukraine with its reforms to improve its economy and consolidate its democracy and modernize its forces to protect its independence. And I want good relations with Russia and have invested a lot in good relations with Russia, but we need to keep sanctions on Russia in place until Russia fully implements the Minsk agreements that Chancellor Merkel and President Hollande and others have worked so hard to maintain and provide a path for a political resolution of this issue. There's no doubt that how a united Europe works together can be improved. But look around the world at authoritarian governments and theocracies that rule by fear and oppression. And there is no doubt that democracy is still the most just and effective form of government ever created. So we have to be vigilant in defense of these pillars of democracy. Not just elections, but rule of law as well as fair elections, a free press, vibrant civil societies where citizens can work for change, going towards pressing needs like education and healthcare. But even as we take steps that are required to ensure our security, even as we help Turkey and Greece cope with this influx in a way that is safe and humane, even as Chancellor Merkel and other European leaders work for an orderly immigration and resettlement process rather than a disorderly one, even as we all need to collectively do more to invest in the sustainable development and governance in those nations from which people are fleeing so that they can succeed and prosper in their own countries, and so that we can reduce the conflicts that cause so much of the refugee crisis around the world. Chancellor Merkel and others have eloquently reminded us that we cannot turn our backs on our fellow human beings who are here now and need our help now.